Hello again, everybody. This is Brandon Peppler. Right now we are on part 5 of our Harry Potter marathon. So what's going on is we will be doing up the audio commentary for Order of the Phoenix. For this, as usual, this is only an audio track, so I won't be doing up any background audio from the film due to copyright. And with that, a lot of this is going to be my take on the personal experience of Harry Potter and little bits of trivia here and there. And for those of you who are familiar with how I'm going to be doing this, you're welcome to get yourselves all stocked up on treats and drinks and go to the washroom or bathroom. And you may pause now. Alright, hopefully you are all ready with your streamed versions or physical copies of the film, so we'll get down to it in 1, 2, 3, and play. So, when growing up with the books, I never quite read up toward Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, or Deathly Hallows, so when I first saw this I was pretty much going blind. Now, so from the book standpoint, I pretty much tried to connect the dots as best as I could, because given that I had read the book as a child, and I did as best as I could to research, and I intend to wanting to read up on the book as soon as I get the copy of it, or at least find an audiobook version. But so right around this time, Harry is back with the Dursleys. So right around here, he was pretty much at the time of a very intense heat wave, and Harry, as can be seen, is often out of the house, usually to avoid the Dursleys as best as possible. And right around here, he usually goes on walks, but in the instance of, like, of course, he's always often trying to find any shred of news, given that he always has the radio with him, or at least any pieces of newspaper on him. Harry Melling. I think this is probably the lowest he's ever been as Dudley. I mean, just even a look at him. I mean, he just looks... He actually matches the behavior of Dudley so incredibly. I mean, you could look at him like he's just a thug. I mean, and above all, I mean, he may look pretty tough, but he's not very bright. Probably not one of the brightest in a lamp at all. When I saw this little moment, I was going like, geez, Harry can run fast. But then again, I mean, Daniel at this point was still very athletic young man around this time, so you would think that, I mean, he even matches with the physical characteristics of Harry quite well. I mean, thin yet nimble. I mean, you would think that he would be a natural sprinter. But yeah, so with the heat wave and the news was pretty much all towards trying to get a word out on what Voldemort whereabouts could be. But ultimately, the mystery was covering it up. Almost sounded like a whip snap right there, the moment the one contact with the Dementor. But so, right around this time, this is pretty much the turning point for Dudley. All while his soul is being sort of extracted by that Dementor. I think this is pretty much the wake-up for Dudley. He realized all the trouble he had done. I mean, especially with having grown up, being the only son, spoiled and often harassing Harry and hurting him. This such instance is pretty much the wake-up point and the ultimate change in Dudley. So, Mrs. Figg, I know most of you have probably read the book, but for those of you who haven't, she is a squib. So basically what a squib is, it's basically someone that has been born into a magical family, but is unable to perform any magical feats. It wasn't his fault. Oh, really? I mean, you would think it would be one of the Mystery Owls that would be competent enough to fly, and not just flop. No, it's supposed to be a howler. I mean, just for a second, Vernon looked like a walrus. But then again, right around this time, well, Richard Griffiths, he was getting pretty close to his at the end of his career, because I haven't seen much of his work, Richard Griffiths, but I only knew him from having seen the Harry Potter films as Vernon, but he's been in a number of works, so upon reviewing some of his work, I noticed that he was in Gandhi with Ben Kingsley. That's a good film. One I should definitely see one of these days. He was in Superman 2. I think he was an extra. He was one of the terrorists. What else? Naked Gun 2.5. He was in Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp. I sense a conspiracy here. He was also in the recent, He was also in Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides as King George II. Yeah, so Richard Griffiths, he had been in the acting business for quite some time, and unfortunately he passed away in 2013. I mean, I would think that he was a very nice man. So, Tonks, she was portrayed by Natalia Tena. I'm not really much familiar with her work, but it seems like she's been in a number of works, a lot of which are very, well, let's see, her filmography is, I would say it's a pretty modest line of films. But, so I think she was also in this show, Black Mirror, for the feature-length special White Christmas. I mean, that show was remarkably incredible. I've only seen a few episodes of it, but I really want to try getting back into at least seeing that film. She was also in Bellamy with Robert Pattinson and Christina Ricci and Irma Thurman. Oddly enough, Ralph Fiennes ended up collaborating with Thurman in the well, I think it was called the Avengers. I mean, not Marvel Avengers, but it was a British show. It was based off of a British show. It's like it's supposed to be an action spy type of series. I mean, kind of like akin to like how James Bond was, but kind of like where there's like the suave secret agent and this sophisticated female partner. But so, the Order of the Phoenix. Who exactly are they? Well, from the background was that Dumbledore ended up founding them, given to the return of Voldemort back in the 1970s, when he was beginning his campaign of exterminating non-magical people. So right around then, the organization were very much the turning point of the First Wizarding War, and with that, they disbanded right after the fall of Voldemort in '81, right when baby Harry Potter seemingly had dissolved his power unknowingly. So, given to the return of Voldemort in many years later, well, Well, talk about being out of the loop. But so yeah, it would make a lot of sense for Harry to not get involved, given that it was already traumatizing enough, having seen Voldemort return, seeing Cedric die, and right around this point he's already in enough trauma as it is, given that he's already seen Voldemort during the Philosopher's Stone, having seen a memory of him in the Chamber of Secrets, and had seen the traitor of his family in Prisoner of Azkaban, Crookshanks. Oh. That's what she said. So, Tonks, she was featured in Hogwarts Mystery, and she ultimately befriends the character, the cover-ups. Why smear campaign? Well, you would think that there would be influence inside of the Ministry of Magic, because there are a lot of supporters of Voldemort still tied in with the Ministry, and that the smear campaign would be likely as a result of a conspiracy to cover up it. Oldman, he looks incredible. That's serious. Just like, well, after having escaped, and it's just incredible of how healthier he looks. There it is. But so in the instance of, I mean, of course, it make a lot of sense for Harry wanting to track down Voldemort, and given that he wants to finish what he started. But of course, here comes. Arthur Weasley, folks. Well, I mean, given that he is in Muggle artifacts, I mean, it would make a lot of sense for him to at least study Muggle establishments. And but what's going on is that Harry was supposed to be expelled or seemingly supposed to be. But he is entitled to a fair hearing as an appeal. I mean, given to the fact he did use a spell defensively. In such an instance, that would at least let him off easy, and he's not really one that would just want to break rules or laws, for that matter. And so the smear campaign continues to balloon. Just the whole idea of shaming both Harry and Dumbledore, it's just disgraceful. I mean, there's even reporters that are just using libel to get by, especially trying to get sales going. Oh. Talk about short notice. So, Kingsley Shacklebolt, he was portrayed by George Harris. I'm not quite familiar with his work, so, but he had been in a number of works, like he was in the 1980 film Flash Gordon. He hasn't been in a number of very extreme works. He was in Black Hawk Down. That was a good film itself. Ridley Scott, incredible director. It's quite a shame. Oh wait, he was also in Layer Cake? He was even in the 1998 live-action adaptation of Madeline. Well then, I guess I he was also in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, there we go. Why would you want to describe the mentors? They are what they are. Cloaked. Well, mean, probably not to the Ministry directly, but it could have been people that could have been connected with the Ministry, given that there would have been people associated with the dark arts that are still tied to the Ministry. And thus, of course, hence, unless Voldemort could have actually had some under his direct command. Denial. Ultimate denial. And here we go. Mm-hmm. And which makes a lot of sense. I mean, he did use it in a life-threatening situation, and the mentors themselves, they're known for knowing for, they are known, excuse me, for having been used as a form of execution for soul extraction. I mean, so why judge a boy because why accuse him for something he was intending to do? I mean, yes, he hated Dudley, but he did the right thing. He would have let Dudley, of course, have his soul end up being extracted. And devoured. But, of course, he did the right thing for having Dudley be spared of being just a husk. I just recently came to like a realization that perhaps the Marauders seen in the stories, they kind of seem almost just like what would happen if the Beatles happened to be associated in the magical world. But I wanted to know like who would be who in comparison. I mean, well, quite honestly, I would think that James would be more closely associated with John. But if any of you have thoughts on probably comparing who with who, then go for it. Oh, and along with that, I also did like a bit of like a lookup of like which band member would be sorted into what house. Voldemort in a suit. Creepy, isn't it? But so, in the instance that, but yeah, I've looked up, like, there's been plenty of theories surrounding what the Beatles could probably be sorted into, in terms of Hogwarts houses, like, John being in Slytherin, Paul in Gryffindor, George in Ravenclaw, and Ringo in Hufflepuff, which I think seems to match it up quite well. But you would think that their parents would probably be kind of put away. I mean, like, well, Crabbe and Goyle's parents. But, of course, with the smear campaign, that's highly unlikely. Are you sure? Ivana Lynch as Luna Lovegood. But, so this was, of course, her debut in the films as Luna. So, I mean, she doesn't quite have much in terms of works. She was very new at the time, so. I mean, she only has a few films under her belt, some of which I'm not very familiar with. Like, so there's 2013's GPF, not one I'm familiar with. Dynamite, Danny and the Human Zoo, not one I'm familiar with. My Name is Emily. Madness in the Method. Stars Jason Mewes. Jason Mewes, he is best associated with Kevin Smith, who had done the View Askew films like Clerks, Dogma, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. So, Dolores Umbridge is played by Imelda Staunton. So, she herself has been an accomplished veteran of stage and screen. So, I mean, this is the first time I've actually seen her in any works, but. So, she has been a number of works that I am familiar with. Like, she was in Chicken Run as Bunty. I think that Bunty was like the large, stuck-up chicken of the bunch. She was in Nanny McPhee, one I've never seen. She was in Alice in Wonderland as a voice of one of some of the tall flower faces. She was in Maleficent as Knotgrass. I think that I mean, I'm pretty sure that Knotgrass was I'm not exactly sure who she was, but I think she was supposed to be Flora, I think. I don't know really. I mean, I could be wrong, but I know she was associated in that film with Angelina Jolie as one of the fairy godmothers. Well, she's been in a number of television works too, like so Staunton has been in Tales from the Crypt, About Face, David Copperfield. And she was even a cast member in a stage performance of Sweeney Todd as Mrs. Lovett, who we'll get into a little bit very soon for the that moment just kind of gets me going like, what's going on? But so Imelda Staunton, she is an incredible actress. If only I could see more of her work. Well, I should probably look into it, but so her character Dolores Umbridge, she has a very broad history. But so according to her bio, she is considered as a half-blood, half magical, half muggle. So in the very essence of her, she was sorted into Slytherin House, and with that, she has also been she denied her Muggle heritage. So a lot of this information I got was from Harry Potter folklore. Another extensively knowledge-packed Harry Potter channel that I would definitely recommend for those of you who are into reading up bios and even fully analyzed descriptions of many of the characters, a lot of the what-if scenarios. But so her bio incorporates, like, given her being half-blood, and she has a brother who is a squib. And well, she ultimately ends up her denial as being half-blood, and she of course manipulated her way into the higher ranks of the ministry through many forms of, well, I mean, but so in essence, so Umbridge, she pretty much made up a lot of phony stories, and with that, she ended up climbing up the ranks of the ministry, getting to a higher position to where she's pretty much close to Cornelius Fudge. But so of course, she has an intense hatred of half-breeds. Quite oddly enough, that this is a contradiction because she herself is a half-blood. But so she ended up creating a piece of anti-werewolf legislation preventing people with lycanthropy from having full-time work, such as the case with Remus Lupin. But yeah, I mean, you would think that I mean, if you think that Voldemort was incredibly evil, I think this is evil that you just feel this sickly sweet taste of it. So with that, I just think that, Umbridge, the woman you would love to hate. Beneath that sweet pink exterior, she is cold and calculating and just downright maliciously, she's an awful woman. And even they used the blood quill. Now, from what I remember, this was supposed to be taking place a little later in the book, as opposed to right at this moment. Punished for what? But then again, it all comes towards manipulation in the Ministry, and it's likely that Umbridge could be one of those individuals tied with the manipulation and the smear campaigns. Oh. But, so on the topic of the AWLs, they are like the standardized tests, much associated with any kind of school system. Like, back where I live, it's usually called the Ames test. So it's called the the Ames test is essentially called the Arizona Instrument to Measure Standards. And I would think that any kind of state would have their own kind of standardized test system here in the United States, so. So it's been said here that the owls are considered as pretty much very intense exams, but newts being the NEWTs, which will come up in the following year. But, the concept of nargles. Now it's, so her shoes believing to be stolen. My first thought was, when I first saw this, was it was likely a prank among, like, maybe classmates as a means of giving her unusual nature, and that she goes around barefoot with the loss of her shoes because of that prank. But so it's unknown if they exist or not, but it's assumed that they were extinct or probably endangered. While on the other hand, completely fictional. But who can really know? This part is very symbolic. But so in the instance of her umbrage just going up and down on the steps like that, it's kind of signal like a like a power struggle. I mean, given that, of course, McGonagall and Umbridge just kind of going up and down the steps like that, it's ultimately seen that Umbridge has complete power over him, complete power over the school. Oh, and one thing I should bring up is Percy. So, so after he finished with Hogwarts, he ended up being as junior assistant to Cornelius Fudge. Jeez. Killjoy. But you can definitely see that Filch is really enjoying all the work. I mean, just the very idea of just, oh. Okay, that is just discrimination right there. Let me, honestly, just the way Flitwick was being judged by Umbridge, I mean, that's just despicable. I mean, the poor man can't help that he's half goblin, you know. But then again, that comes with her it just comes towards her prejudice towards half-breeds. But I would suspect she would have that same effect with Hagrid and, of course, the centaurs in the Forbidden Forest. This is just so unfortunate, but and to think that Filch is taking pleasure of all of it. Like he's ultimately become some sort of lackey. I mean, just posting all those educational decrees on the walls. I mean, you would think that even despite his position, he wouldn't just... I mean, it's like dumbing down the system. And I would think that, like, from, like, personal experience, it's kind of like how a lot of the education systems often work. I mean, such as the instance where government tries to interfere with the education system and ultimately dumbs it down. I mean, but you would think that education is supposed to help mold and shape minds, try to encourage people to at least express their ultimate talents and have at least sort of like a background into, like, I mean, I thought education was more towards encouragement as opposed to just making drones for the workforce or... But yeah, politics. I'm not much of one into politics or have any interest in it because it could get very, very messy. I sense a threat. But you could just tell from her. You could tell that she's definitely a wicked woman. I mean, just like the threat of "for now," just right after saying that the power of removing anyone off grounds was in the power of the headmaster. Well, of course she's taking over this school. I mean, even I can't listen to the news very good because, I mean, it's like either smear campaigns or bad news altogether. Well, I mean, why not create a coup to take over the ministry and set things right instead of just waiting things out and have things go worse? Disappearances. It's like the idea of undesirables, such as the instance with like the Nazi campaign. I mean, the very idea of people disappearing. I mean, undesirables, like, of course, people of different race or relationship orientation. All eyes turn to Harry. Well, I mean, he's the only one that has real experience in having faced the dark arts, and with that, it makes a lot of sense, really. I mean, so the trick is how to actually get that prepared. So the hogshead. Well, It would make a lot of sense to use an unfamiliar place, especially with these secret meanings. Well, you can see a few familiar faces here. Proper. Yes, so the Patronus. That's something I'd also mention that it kind of ties in with the idea of a spirit animal too. Like how I mentioned in Prisoner of Azkaban that mine would have been the Chow dog. Well, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, especially with the environment. I mean, even so much as book knowledge is probably different from real experience. Say it. There you go. And so begins the birth of Dumbledore's army. But you wouldn't know, would you? Because, I mean, you would think that Cho and Cedric were in a very close relationship, especially after the Yule Ball, and I think the instance of his death would, of course, break her heart significantly. Matthew Lewis, I mean, you could tell he really did change more and more over the course of those films. I mean, you would seem that, he started out at this insecure little boy, but over time he became a much more confident young man. I mean, that's the very transformation of Neville. Makes sense. Ooh. But I would think that the classic swish and flick would pretty much be the standard wand movement for any spell. But for the non-verbal ones, the non-verbal movements, you definitely have to have an extensive knowledge of it. Ooh. But yeah, there's more to it than just... I mean, there's more to it than just, like, the actual spells. Like, I mean, like, of course, there could even be the use of defensive spells, like, of course, Protego. It's pretty much a shield spell. It can be useful for pretty much blocking off any kind of aggressively deployed spells. While load. But so, in any case, so, I mean, there would be at least a number of spells that the students would learn. I mean, like, of course, besides Expelliarmus, Stupefy, Protego, like, they would also know a number of aggressive spells. But you would think that they would also know other spells like Depulso and Flipendo, a lot of which could be used for pretty much for more intense means of knocking back your opponents. I mean, there's even uses of proper stunning spells. I mean, such as the instance with like non-lethal petrification, like Petrificus Totalis, Immobilis, but even simple spells. I mean, like the instance of Rictus Sempra, the tickling one. Good thinking. And Reducto. Another good spell, especially if you're encountering non-living targets. Yeah, overall, I would say that Harry is an accomplishing instructor, even with just having just this little underground group. Well, I mean, given the aspects that, of course, this is the getting very close to the very height of the Second Wizarding War. But so yeah, in the instance of like how the Second Wizarding War was happening. Which is indeed unfortunate. Miracles could be happening in those. And quite honestly, at this point I thought that this was like actually going to be happening to those two. Like, well, I mean, of course, I mean, it's pretty much the case that. Well, oh yes, so Madam Chang. So it just seems that there's not really much about her, but except that I think a lot of it comes down to given that, well, the whole idea that given that Cho was associated with Dumbledore's army, there was the threat of course, Cho's mom having being at the risk of being fired from the Ministry as a result of it. And I think that it also probably pretty much connects with another member, member of Dumbledore's army, Marietta Edgecombe. She herself is a Ravenclaw and also the best friend to Cho. I would think that the Cho associated in this film is pretty much an amalgamation between Cho herself from the book and Marietta. So I would think that probably likely that it would be Marietta that would have the fear of her mom being fired from the Ministry. So at this point we are in the occlumency lecture. So that there is a version in the Order of the Phoenix game where you could, of course, attempt to resist Snape. And in the instance where you pretty much are facing him, everything's all black in his while he's attempting to use the Legitimate's charm. It's pretty much kind of like almost like a struggle of wanting to, of course. Well, the struggle is, of course, trying to block out everything that Snape is trying to throw at you. Friend George. Another classic Weasley sweater. I swear. I swear, Oldman gives Sirius a significant charm. Creature. But of course, even Creature indoctrinates some of the prejudice towards, of course, the non-pure blood lineages. Pretty much disowned. But yeah, so yeah, the Blacks, they're considered as one of the oldest wizarding families in the face of the British magical world. You would it's very strange in how, like, everything ties in with genealogy, especially when it comes to the wizarding world. But how could genealogy have to do anything with magical prowess? important words. Good words, Sirius. Good words. And that kind of ties in with the aspirations of choice making us who we are, as opposed to who we are or what our backgrounds are. The real people we are based upon the choices we make as individuals. And well, even plus with how this world is very gray in most respects, you would think that everything's, I don't know, it's the very idea of everything being black and white, it's not that really possible in this age. Many things have changed, and it's very hard to figure out what is what, and I mean, even bad people have good intentions, and even good people make bad choices. The geography has changed again. Well, not just that, but of course. Oh, you sick. But I can't say it, folks. I just really can't. It's just the idea of adult language. I shouldn't say it in these commentaries at all. I mean, especially just toward a character like Umbridge. It's just I mean, it's like the blowing point that you don't want even to come across, but all of a sudden it's just whoa. Well, obviously, I mean, giants would definitely make an impact, especially if incorporating either side, being it the Order or the Death Eaters. Well, in this case, it would make a lot of sense for both the Order and the Death Eaters to have anything they can get. I mean, not just wizards or witches, but any kind of magical creatures they can recruit into them. Bellatrix Lestrange, played by none other than yours truly, the ever remarkable Helena Bonham Carter. So remember how I brought up how like how Staunton portrayed as Mrs. Levitt in the 2013 stage version of Sweeney Todd, but Carter was obviously, well, so Carter portrayed her in the live version with Johnny Depp. Honestly, Johnny Depp. I mean, I have to be honest, the guy is an incredible actor. I gotta say that right now. I enjoyed a lot of his work. It just kind of seems like these connections keep piling up more and more. But, so, I've seen her in a number of work, like, I would think, like, one of the earliest of her works I saw her in was the 99 film adaptation to Fight Club. Her being as, Marla Singer. And, she's also been in a number of works. Well, obviously, she's been closely associated with Tim Burton. Yeah, married. And so she's been in a number of works. Like she, of course, had been Planet of the Apes, Burton, Big Fish, Burton, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Burton. Then, of course, you got Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass, Burton. And she was also Queen Elizabeth II in the King's Speech. She was even the fairy godmother in Cinderella. Her latest role is in Ocean's 8. And there it is. She's been in a number of shows. Well, a lot of which I haven't seen before. But she is in a main role Oh wait, I think I screwed up somewhere. Like Queen Elizabeth. I think that I think she was like I mean, not the direct Queen Elizabeth, but I mean, it's kind of confusing, isn't it? But so she was also in Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit, for which she was co-cast with Ralph Fiennes. She's been in some theater work. I mean, like, of course, obviously some Shakespearean work, such as the case with The Tempest. Barbara Seville, and you could probably tell that she has an extensive career. I mean, a lot of which she's been mostly tied in with film. But yeah, again, the whole Johnny Depp connection, you would probably tell that after all this, it was intensely inevitable that he would probably be cast in as Gellert Grindelwald. I mean, either by accident or design. I'm actually really looking forward to how Crimes Against Grindelwald will turn out. I mean, especially with Jude Law being portrayed as, actually portraying as the young Dumbledore. I mean, even I know some of his works, at least to a minor degree. But, but yeah, so Dumbledore's army was disbanded, given that Umbridge ended up sapping the truth from Marietta Edgecombe, and that ultimately dissolved the relationship between Harry and Cho. You would think it would probably at least work out in some way, even after all that. I mean, Cho wouldn't seem one to betray. Excuse me. One to betray. The blood quills. I feel bad for all the students that are associated with Dumbledore's army. I mean, they just wanted to learn. And she's just sitting there relishing in pleasure, just watching all these students. Oh my, that's just, it's awful. And everyone's just, it's not like she wanted to. It's in the instance of, like, Fraticerium did it in. The more you care, the more you lose. But I mean, it's very unfortunate. I mean, I can understand the idea of wanting to work so hard towards something, and then it ultimately just falls away. It's very, very disappointing experience. I mean, even if it has good intentions. So in the instance of where, I mean, it's very sad just seeing everything just falling away, even after all attempts of doing hard work. And this here is Gwarp. But so, from what I understand, he is supposed to be Hagrid's half-brother, given the instance that Gwarp is of course a full giant. I mean, it kind of seems like Gwarp is very much like a child. Firm but fair. Mm. I mean, Gorp is very much like. I mean, despite being this giant, I would think that how he's portrayed in the film is he's more childlike. But I would think that in the books he would, and then at least like the book adaptations, he would be at least a little bit more aggressive. But I don't know. It's once again I gotta read the book, so. Family. Well, Snape is attempting to help Harry, but it just kind of seems like every attempt is becoming more and more futile. And given the idea that, of course, Harry is attempting to suppress everything he has. But at least in the game, you're given a choice of at least attempting to block out the legitimate. Mm-hmm. But now you can tell that there was more to the story. But you can definitely tell there's more to it to Snape than we originally thought. You could tell just from those brief flashes that he seemed like a very miserable boy, and that he was ultimately bullied by the likes of James and the Marauders. Oh. But there is a difference between punishment and rehabilitation. Well, given to how things are going on, well, it's just, well, but yeah, back on the topic of Snape, when I saw those brief moments, I was like, James was that bad as a student? Just being a bully? I mean, no wonder Snape turned out that way. I mean, there's the idea of how experiences can shape people, and in many respects, it does work to a degree. Any bad experience can help form a personality of any kind of person. Like, in my instance, I mean, even I had moments where I was pretty much like, have been targeted as a victim of bullying because, I mean, I was kind of like, sort of like an outcast to some degree to some of the students, given to being almost, I was very much a strange person in a lot of ways, so, but I picked fights because I thought that, I mean, if I run away, they will always try to come at me and continue bullying me, so I try standing up for myself as a means of wanting to at least prove that I'm not one to be a pushover. Well, what a way of dropping out with a bang, eh, boys? Wizard crackers. But run, witch, run! And boom. Tear down the wall! Tear down the wall! Tear down the wall! And Flitwick's all like, yes! But, oh, that's right, back on the topic of Snape, I had recently, well, not too long ago, had seen a fan film set around Snape's senior year, and that, of course, would, of course, ultimately trigger events with his joining into the Death Eaters, but it's called Severus Snape and the Marauders. It chronicles pretty much the Marauders and, of course, Snape around that period of time, for where they were, of course, starting to leave Hogwarts, having just graduated. But so, in essence, this it kind of goes around with the idea of course, all four of the Marauders having their one final go at Snape. But I'm not going to spoil it for you. But please check it out when you can. That face. He's just pretty much dismisses everything, and she's all like, "Really, you would go as far as doing the Cruciatus curse?" But so, you could different tell. Oh, poor Umbridge. Her outfit getting all dingy and dirty, all because she had wandered to the Forbidden Forest. Well, just comes to show, never look good in something that has no utility value. Like you tricked all the students? Well, good. Children would hate you too. All manner of children would hate you. Wicked witch. Oh my. Oh my goodness. You would sacrifice. I don't think they would really care for it. And you would really want to sacrifice the freedoms and responsibilities of all the students at Hogwarts just for order and security. I must not tell lies. Well, what'd you think? It was supposed to be real, given that in the circumstances of the school being manipulated by the ministry's own supposed good intended control. Yeah, I wouldn't think that the Thistrals themselves are really too bad. I mean, you'd think that they'd look pretty scary, but it's just remarkable how they really look. The Department of Mysteries. So, not many would be familiar with it, but of course it's not only been said to hold prophecies, but it's also been worked by certain individuals in the ministry called unspeakables. Now, they are witches and wizards that work in that department, and not much is known about the workplace or even their jobs in particular. They were forbidden from discussing their jobs or disclosing any information about the department, hence the name Unspeakable. So overall, the whole place is pretty much shrouded in secrecy. I mean, given the fact, of course, prophecies. It's very curious about how a lot of everything that connects with each story winds up it just winds up kind of connecting. So when I saw that Lucius was involved in this, I think it's pretty much kind of a bit of a way of like trying to get back on Voldemort's good graces, given that he had disgraced himself significantly. But which would make a lot of sense, given that, of course, Lucius was supposed to be like one of Voldemort's top lieutenants among the Death Eaters. But given in recent events, it pretty much had him lose a lot of respect and trust. They are relentless. Call back. Run! It's an avalanche of prophecies. Well, that just comes to show you that there's probably going to be one less department in the ministry that could be filled. Oh, it's not. It's just an empty archway. Jeez. They won't stop to get it. And all this time they can just smash it. You don't need to depend on prophecies. Your arrogance blinds you, Malfoy. Destroy it. Destroy it. Very tense moment. This is a very tense moment. Who could that be now? Oh, wicked cool. Oh. So, the Order of the Phoenix has arrived. Impressive. I mean... really can't express words at this moment. It's just, oh. Just like old times. Oh. This is a very tragic moment. But, so, I read up on something that they had to pretty much quiet out Daniel's scream when they were, of course, filming this moment, because it was so painfully realistic to where, I mean, because just the I mean, just. She's playing a game. But yeah, so I mean, I may be wrong, but back at that scream, it was so painfully real. What you call showing mercy being weak? I think not. Such empty promises of death, really. Voldemort, fueled by pure blood, purity, as well as total domination over the magical and non-magical worlds. I mean, I have to admit that just watching Voldemort and Dumbledore, just watching the pair fight off like that, that's just like, it just shows a showcase of power. The teacher and the student facing off. Resistant. There's where the test comes in. Control. Resist. Come on. I mean, every time I watch this, I was going like, Just the idea of Voldemort probing into Harry's mind and even torturing him from inside. But I would think that, of course, despite what may happen, it's ultimately it's love as power can ultimately overcome the darkness. Um, yes. Pity. Pity and mercy and love. Even true power can be done through acts of good, and even with a good heart. Well, well, well. Now? It took you that long to actually get the idea that Voldemort has been back? Really? All that time? Oh, good job. You had just... Oh... I just kind of show it's not over yet. Now you're gone. But more will be at stake. I mean, such is the case with... I mean, Harry has, of course, now lost the last piece of family he ever had. I mean, yes, it's good to even have friends and loved ones that are not connected with family, but... Well, I guess that pretty much rebounded and caused more damage than good. Mm-hmm. But he's already been under significant pain. So much. I mean, and now, without any family to go to, he's by himself. isn't she going to get him down, or... Oh well, she'll get him again. That is very true. Just... It's hard to really believe that all this is going on. And this is, of course, paving the way for future events to come, and so, David Yates, he would go on to direct the subsequent films, and with that, I think he is an outstanding director, especially in this case. It really suits the layout of how the dark tones would actually become in terms of the later stories. But so we've reached the end of Order of the Phoenix, and we will continue on with Part 6, The Half-Blood Prince.